So last week I was having a conversation with one of our partners and we got on the topic of the difference between web leads and referrals, right? And so it got me thinking, I was like, you know what? This would be a really good podcast episode because it's something that we haven't really dug into. I think it's one of those things that we're so used to it that it we don't even think about it. But there are definitely differences between excuse me. There are definitely differences between web leads and referrals. And one of the biggest reasons for that difference is big picture. When you catch a web lead early on in their sales process, they may not be as ready to move forward as someone who's a referral because they're simply not, they just haven't moved along that journey. But you have the opportunity to capture that web lead and set the bar. So, you know, one of the things about referrals is if you picture the funnel, right? So it's just in your mind. I'll try to paint this picture, right? The very top layer of your funnel, we're going to make that blue, and it's really wide, right? We get a lot of leads up here. Then the next level, we're going to make it green, and it's not quite as wide because we're funneling them in. And then we're going to go, let's just say yellow, and it's a little slimmer, and then down to red, right? We'll just have 4 levels in this conversation. The referrals are probably in the second, maybe even the third level, depending on what happened, right? They've probably already done some web research. They've asked for input from friends, loved ones, doctors, right? They're asking people at their church, hey, I think we need to look for some place, for mom or dad. They're really starting to have some issues taking care of themselves and yada, 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 right? You're starting to have those conversations. Once you're having those conversations, 9 times out of 10, or at least 8 times out of 10, we know it's at least 81 or 83%. They start with a web search, right? They're laying in bed and they're thinking about it and they're Googling, senior living or nursing home, right? The number one thing that they Google is nursing home. So that has already happened and we didn't get them, right? Maybe they didn't get the information they were looking for. They didn't see pricing. They didn't, the story didn't resonate with them and they didn't engage with your website, right? And now they're either asking for referrals from someone, from their doctor, or they've turned to an aggregate like Caring or A Place for Mom, right? I mean, Luke, in all your years at working in-house, how often were those referrals also accompanied by like a medical event, like they fell or they're in the hospital, and now it's really got the family looking for something quicker?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and those are the leads where they are ready to take action very quickly. It's those website leads where they're just kind of getting started and just starting to look for information.
Back in the day, how much of an advantage do you think it would have been if you could have shared your story of your community before they ever started talking to referrals? Like if you had a chance to build that trust and build that relationship from the first time they hopped on your website, how big of an advantage do you think that gives you?
Oh, absolutely huge. A major advantage. I mean, we've talked about this multiple times. The senior living industry has such a low trust score. So to be able to establish that trust and authority and reliability early on makes all the difference in the world.
I mean, I know statistically. So Luke and I partnered up. Luke worked in-house in the communities for 5 years in the corporate office and served those communities really well, really well and really closely. So he's got some perspective sometimes that I don't have. But I look at the numbers, right? And I know that if you're the first person, the first community to talk to them, the odds of you getting them as a move-in doubles. And if you follow up with them frequently enough and fast enough, I mean, I've seen it to be 6 to 8 times as likely of getting them. So it's just a numbers game, right? When we talk about this all the time, if you saw our last episodes, we talked about the spreadsheets and those numbers. If we can catch them at the very beginning of their process, and by we, I mean us with our partners, or, you all that are listening, if you can catch them early in the process, you have the opportunity to set the tone and set their expectations for their entire journey, right? What I mean by that is if you follow up with them in 2 or 3 minutes and the other communities that they reach out to don't follow up to them for a day or two, and when they do follow up, it's an automated email that's very obviously automated, excuse me, or you get a phone call like 2 days later, or a text message 2 days later. Hey, Luke, this is Dallas. Man, I'm so sorry. It's just been crazy around here. I apologize. I didn't get back to you sooner. Well, which one looks better? Which one looks like they have their act together and is better suited to take care of my mom and dad or my grandparent or whoever, right? Whatever loved one we're talking about. So that to me is one of the biggest reasons for those number disparities as far as when you're first, is that you get to set the first expectation for every community that they talk to.
Hmm.
And that is why having these tools is so important, because it's like I had a terrible chat experience this morning with Good Sam RV Rentals. They could not solve my problem at all. It just kept looping me into this never ending, well, no, we want you to answer this question. That's not my question, right? So setting the expectation on your website and in your communications from day one, it's going to give you such an advantage.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think one of the biggest ways that you can get an advantage over your competitors, and this is one thing that we are really trying to emphasize with our partners, is video testimonials of your residents. I mean, you'll go on many community websites and you'll see written testimonials where they'll take a Google review and post it. Sometimes I've even seen where it says anonymous. So I mean, at that point, if you have to post an anonymous review, it's probably not even worth putting it on the website at all.
I would agree with that 100%. If I see an anonymous review on anything, I just assume it's made up.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
even when I see that Dallas S or Luke A or Susan S said something, that's made up. My
Yeah.
first inclination is to say that they made that up. Because why else? If someone believes in your community enough to give you a testimonial, why would they care if you use their full name?
Right.
Right? Like that.
Yeah.
That. And maybe that's just me in the marketing business and knowing how this thing works. But like, I don't believe any text testimonial that doesn't have a full name at least.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah,
Oh,
you can make
absolutely.
up videos too, but it sure is a lot more work to fake those, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so you think about referrals, they're coming from someone that said, "Hey, I really recommend this." And so they're coming in already with they're not completely trusting you, but they at least have a little bit of they're trusting their friend, they're trusting a medical professional, someone who's coming to your site. They don't trust you at all. And so the best way right off the bat to get them to start trusting you is to say, "Hey, don't take our word for it. Here's what our residents have to say. This is what Bob has to say. This is what Susan has to, say about what great care we took of her dad here." Let your residents, let your family establish that trust and authority. And then I think once you do that, you'll start to see the turnaround time on, leads becoming tours and deposits. You'll start to see that time decrease and decrease. It might not get all the way to, how quickly you can turn referrals into deposits and move-ins, but you can definitely um, get a better conversion ratio when you start to establish that trust quickly.
Well, I think it does fit into, and this is one of the things I was going to chat about here too, is your sales processes are going to be a little different for web leads than they are for a referral. Because again, a referral, somebody has told them that you're a good fit, right? So they are already psychologically into this. But if they're just on your website and they've downloaded pricing or they've downloaded some PDF or whatever, um, you've got to plan out 6 months of engaging follow-up. And when you have those videos in your, in the can, so to speak, when you've got those things ready to go, you can schedule them out and mix in invitations, right? So, hey, we've got we've got an antique car show coming up in a couple of weeks. Love to have you come out. And I know you said your husband used to love to work on old cars. Be a great chance to come meet some of our residents. And like Bob here. Bob, this is one of our residents. Bob, he made this video talking about how awesome he loves this place. He'll be there. He loves cars, right? Whatever. You can tie it into that, to where it's engaging follow up, not just, hey, just checking in, right? Like it doesn't matter what industry you're in. The old, hey, just checking in is a terrible follow up. And so, invitation to events, asking to come into their home. You can learn a lot about a potential resident by going to their home. And just, not going snooping around like you're spying on them, but you can get an idea of, okay, they've got some major problems here. As you look around the room, like, okay, well, it's her walker. She can't really get into the bathroom with her walker. Right. Or whatever the case may be, you get a chance to really see them in their element. So in-home visits are great. Thinking of you gifts. I know, Luke, you're a big fan of the book Giftology. Once you have this process in place, so like, we know that for most of our partners, a tour, an in-person tour is worth at least $800 and $900. Some places they're worth $1,200, $1,500. If you want, you can download our spreadsheet. We'll put it in again this time, just since we mentioned it. We put it in last episode as well. You can download the spreadsheet and play with this, and it'll figure out your KPIs of what does each one of those cost. But spend $50 on a gift, right? A personal gift, like something that you learn that they really like, maybe an author that they really love, and you say, hey, do you have their new book? And they say no. Send them the book, right? Little things like that you can put into your budget once you have those numbers. But you have to understand that sales cycle for the web leads is longer, and you can either just let it kind of happen, or you can map it out. And I would suggest the same thing for referrals, right? And I know all these are kind of different, but a referral, you may close them on average of 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And a web lead, you're going to get some web leads that are also urgent, but the majority of web leads are going to be a longer sales process because they're just starting to look, and that's not a bad thing, right? I was talking to our partner last week, and he was saying, really, for the first 2 years or so, that this really awesome closer they had was in that position. They really benefited from a lot of post-COVID stuff where people were moving in faster. And so I told him, I was like, for some people, they're a cashier basically, right? Like someone's ready to move in, they're coming in, boom, let's go. And I think we're getting out of that phase in the industry, right? We're getting back to normal where it's a longer sales cycle. And so what I would suggest is, you map out the process, and when they come in as a referral, you figure out where they are, and you put them in the 3-month process, and boom, here we go. If they come in from a web lead and they say, hey, we're just kind of looking, this is probably going to be at least 4 to 6 months, put them in that 6-month process and let it go. But I think that's the big issue, is when people say, oh, well, web leads, we don't close any of them.
Yeah.
Well, it's typically because you're not allowing enough time to close them. You're waiting for them to get ready instead of guiding them to get ready. And I think that's the big difference in a web lead versus a referral. Any thoughts on that?
Well, and there's just so many instances in, life today when we get instant gratification. And I think that kind of leaks over into what we really want from our jobs. And so it's maybe more fun, easier to deal with referrals because they're already more committed to your community. When, like you were saying, a web lead may come in and say, yeah, I mean, I've seen people say we're just, we're probably 5 years out. Well, I mean, who's going to be motivated to really spend a lot of time working with that lead? But if you put a system in place and hey, this is my 3 to 5 year plan, then when they are actually looking to move in 5 years, I mean, the chance that they would move in with you versus someone else when you've had them in this systematized 5-year plan, I mean, you are
Yeah.
just, you're going to be way ahead of anyone else. But that's difficult because putting in that system and having a plan in place for those leads, that's, you've got to think that through, you've got to do that, and it may not be that instant gratification, but I mean, you're setting yourself up for success in the future.
Well, and it also it takes work, right? It's not easy when the referrals come in, and it's a little bit easier. There's no sale in senior living that's easy, by the way. I've talked about this time and time again. This is the only industry that I've ever worked in, and the only industry that I know of that is high ticket and no one wants it. Usually something high ticket, you think about, you're selling yachts, you're selling vacation homes, you're selling whatever, like people want it. So it's a different sale. Not many people want senior living, but they need it, and so they
Mhm.
spend the money on it. But yeah, I think you hit something there. Getting that system in place, like build your 6-month system. What does a 6-month of follow up look like? What is a monthly event you can invite them to? What is um, what is a gift you can send them? What can you do to go to their home? What kind of emails, what kind of testimonial videos, how does that fit together, and how can you automate it so that it happens every single time? Setting up a deal where the week after a tour you send them some sort of a gift, right? I mean, getting it authorized with the decision makers, saying, hey, yeah, you can spend $50 per tour on a gift, or $75, or whatever it is, right? uh, but I promise you, not only will you have a direct impact on those people, but they will talk, and it will generate more referrals while you're still cultivating them before they even move in, right? If someone sends me this book as a gift because they listened to me and heard me say I love this author, that makes an impact on me that I'm going to talk about. And then guess what? Not only are you cultivating that web lead, they're also going to start generating more referrals for you. So it's all just building each other. And I think, one of the things that it comes down to is having um, I feel like a lot of people work on their hunting strategy. So like, hey, when I get a lead, how am I going to hunt it and get it closed and get it in? And they don't have a farming strategy, right? To grow these leads and nurture these leads, water the soil, get it to grow
Yeah.
and produce more and more fruit, right? So that's maybe a visual to help with that, because web leads aren't bad leads, right? Like, very far from it. People don't just take tours in senior living communities for funsies, but you have to know where they're at in the sales process on their end. And just understand that it's going to take a longer time to close. Make sure that, also for those of you that are like in the leadership roles, make sure that you set up people's KPIs and what they're getting paid on with these kind of things in mind as well, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where I see a lot of friction come into play. Is you've got certain metrics built out based on referrals. So you're looking for a certain close percentage, you're looking for this, that, and the other. And then you turn on a bunch of web leads and it kills those numbers. And then morale plummets because it wasn't synced, right? So, I would almost see, if it was me, I would even have separate KPIs for referral leads versus web leads. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I absolutely would. Because if you keep all the numbers the same, then, you know, uh, I think you'll have salespeople who they feel like they're doing a better job than their numbers are really indicating. So,
Well, and I think that might be another reason people don't even follow up with web leads, because they don't want to
right.
they don't want those going into the CRM. I'm just thinking out loud here. This could
Yeah.
be another reason. So they don't follow up with them because their numbers, it takes longer,
Yep.
and they don't, it affects their numbers negatively to even put them in the CRM. And
Yeah.
so they're just like, well, we don't close web leads. We're not going to mess
Right.
with it. Yeah,
Right.
that might be a whole nother podcast we need to dig into someday. So anyhow, hey, I know we mentioned at the very beginning that we had a big announcement as well. And so, if you have been thinking about putting tools into your website to generate more of these leads that we're talking about, um, we are now offering a 30-day free trial of our tools, right? So there's zero risk, zero reason not to try this out. Get some data for yourselves and your teams to make a decision. But you can try it out for 30 days. And, I joke, we've literally had people that they've in 90 minutes after it turned on, they were like, whoa,
Yep.
this is incredible. Like, this is actually, there's so many people on our website, and they knew it, right? They knew they had, 800, 1,000 people a month coming in their website, and they were only generating 5 or 6 leads a month.
Right.
So they knew their website needed help. And we put this in there, and I think we got like 4 or 5 leads in the first 90 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, because I mean, we've dialed everything in, and we know what people need and what they want when they visit your community's website. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to.
So, we've talked about the difference today between the web leads and the referrals. I will tell you another big difference right before we hop off here. And it ties into why you should set up this free trial. Web leads are the only way you can predictably and scalably, I don't know if that's a word. It's the only way you can predictably increase occupancy, because referrals you have very little control over. Yes, you can have the farming system in that as well, and you're going and taking donuts to doctors and you're visiting with people, but referrals is really out of your control to a large extent. So if they're on your website, capture them, engage with them, start the conversations, and get them in for a tour. Go meet them at their home, start that follow-up process, and build it out thoughtfully and carefully and in an engaging way, that every time they hear from you, you're adding value to their family's life, you're helping them solve a problem, you're building trust, and they will come. I promise you. So I feel like I kind of monopolized this one today, Luke, but I had that conversation with our partner last week and just had a lot of thoughts I wanted to share. Anything else that you want to throw out there, though, before we hop off? Any other thoughts on the free trial you want to share too?
I mean, it really is just we've tried to make it as much of a no-brainer as possible. And so, I mean, put it on if you manage, 10, 20 communities, put it on, maybe 3 or 4 sites, some that get a lot of traffic, some maybe not as much. And I mean, there's really no downside to it. If you like it after 30 days, we can talk about, what you need to do to keep it on your sites and roll it out to your other communities. If you don't like it, then you don't pay anything. So there's really no risk for you at all. So just go to movingmachine.com and click on the book a demo button.
Awesome. Well, as always, it's fantastic to get to, chat a little bit about what we see in the industry for 15, 20 minutes. And hopefully this has been helpful for you all. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Go to moveinmachine.com. You want to check it out. It's moveinmachine.com/demo. You can set up a call with me. We'll get you set up on your free trial as well. You can also email us, Dallas@seniorlivingpros.com or Luke@seniorlivingpros.com. We'd love to chat with you. If you got a question for an upcoming podcast, shoot it to us an email as well. If something's been going on in your community, and you want to hear our thoughts on it, you want us to invite maybe a specialist, depending on what the topic is, we'll invite them on to chat about it, and get it out there. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.